Sam C. Hey guys, here we go with some story time with Dora. Up in the forest, Apache Sitgreaves, I believe. What are we doing today? Well, we got Journey to the Center of the Earth, Chapter 12, Part 2. We didn't get through the chapter last time. Where are we rolling? We's rolling on US 191 South, and we's trying to get up around Hannigan Meadows. And we do, eventually. This is a little boondocking spot. I guess it's probably south of Alpine, and that's where we're going to start it out for the day. Well, I'll have to see if I can find a spot here. There's as I get going up the road here, there's an interaction with some either loggers or miners or cattle ranchers. That's the three big things you're going to run into up here. And it had looked like the boys were possibly out late and up early. You know the look. Okay, so let's get to this story. Journey to the Center of the Earth. Now, when we left this thing off, Harry, the professor, and the worthy eider-down hunter, Hans, they was all trekking their way up the mountain, and Harry was doing some internal dialogue and kind of giving himself a little lecture on about how foolish it would be to go into the bowels of the earth. And somehow, as he was trekking forward, somehow the realization that he was doing something foolish made him feel better. Okay, so here we go. We're going to pick it up. Oh, here we go. This mental lecture delivered to myself while proceeding on a journey did me good. I was quite reassured as to the fate of our enterprise, and therefore went, like a brave soldier mounting a bristling battery, to the assault of old Sneffels. As we advanced, the road became every moment more difficult. The soil was broken and dangerous. The rocks broke and gave way under our feet, and we had to be scrupulously careful in order to avoid dangerous and constant falls. Hans advanced as calmly as if he had been walking over Salisbury Plain. Sometimes he would disappear behind huge blocks of stone, and we momentarily lost sight of him. There was a little period of anxiety, and then there was a shrill whistle just to tell us where to look for him. Occasionally, he would take it into his head to stop to pick up lumps of rock and silently pile them up into small heaps in order that we might not lose our way on our return. He had no idea of the journey we were about to undertake. At all events, the precaution was a good one, though how utterly useless and unnecessary. But I must not anticipate. 3 hours of terrible fatigue, walking incessantly, had only brought us to the foot of the great mountain. This will give some notion of what we had still to undergo. Suddenly, however, Hans cried, "Halt!" He made signs to that effect, and a summary kind of breakfast? Oh, there we go. Here, let me do that bit over again, because I really chewed that up. Suddenly, however, Hans cried a halt, that is. He made signs to that effect, and a summary kind of breakfast was laid out on the lava before us. My uncle, who now was simply Professor Hardwick, was so eager to advance that he bolted his food like a greedy clown. This halt for refreshment was also a halt for repose. The professor was therefore compelled to wait for the good pleasure of his imperturbable guide, who did not give the signal for departure for a good hour. The three Icelanders, who were as taciturn as their comrade, did not say a word, but went on eating and drinking very quietly and soberly. From this, our first real stage, we began to ascend the slopes of Sneffels volcano. Its magnificent, snowy nightcap, as we began to call it, by an optical delusion very common in mountains, appeared to me to be close at hand. And and yet, how many long, weary hours must elapse before we reached its summit? What unheard of fatigue must we endure? The stones on the mountainside, held together by no cement of soil, bound together by no roots or creeping herbs, gave way continually under our feet and went rushing below into the plains like a series of small avalanches. In certain places, the sides of this stupendous mountain were at an angle so steep that it was impossible to climb upwards, and we were compelled to get round these obstacles as best we might. Oh, here's these guys here. They're like, have you seen the Lizard King? And I'm like, what? Have you seen the Lizard King? And I'm like, no, not today. Off they go. I'm pretty sure they were, you know, there's some mining and there's some little bit of lumber where they clean the forest fuel, the ground fuels up and stuff, so there's a little bit of logging kind of thing. And there's also the cattle ranchers guys, and I'd seen the cattle on the road out there, so I suspect that that's what those guys were, and they were trying to be funny. When they pulled up beside me there, I thought for sure they were going to ask about if I had any gray poop on, but no, they did not. They were inquiring of the Lizard King, of which I knew nothing about. Those who understand alpine climbing will comprehend our difficulties. Often we were obliged to help each other along by means of our climbing poles. I must say this for my uncle, that he stuck as close to me as possible. He never lost sight of me, and on many occasions his arm supplied me with firm and solid support. He was strong, wiry, and apparently insensible to fatigue. Another great advantage with him was that he had the innate sentiment of equilibrium, for he never slipped or failed in his steps. The Icelanders, though heavily loaded, climbed with the agility of mountaineers. Looking up every now and then at the height of the great volcano of Sneffels, it appeared to me wholly impossible to reach the summit on that side. At all events, if the angle of inclination did not speedily change. Fortunately, after an hour of unheard of fatigues and of gymnastic exercises that would have been trying to an acrobat, we came to a vast field of ice, which wholly surrounded the bottom of the cone of the volcano. The natives called it the tablecloth. Probably from some such reason as the dwellers in the Cape of Good Hope call their mountain Table Mountain, and their roads Table Bay. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but okay. Let's take a look at this drive. Let's just take a look at this drive and see where we're at. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, when I was, I don't know, one of the other videos, oh, I know what it was. It's the scooter, the Forest Road 249 scooter video that I was talking about and saying how nice it was up here. And it really is. It's just so darn pretty. And yeah, so we'll just kind of keep going here. I end up boondocking again, but we're not there yet. So now where are we at with this story? Man, I don't even know if we're going to get done chapter 12. Oh boy, if I step on it, we sure will. What are the odds of that happening? Okay, here we go. No. That's not where it was. Oh, here we go. The Good Hope and Calder Mountain, Table Mountain, and blah, blah, blah. All right. Here, to our mutual surprise, we found an actual flight of stone steps, which wonderfully assisted our ascent. This singular flight of stairs was, like everything else, volcanic. It had been formed by one of those torrents of stones cast up by the eruptions, and of which the Icelandic name is Steina, whatever. If these singular torrent had not been checked in its descent by the peculiar shapes of the flanks of the mountain, it would have swept into the sea and would have formed new islands. Such as it was, it served us admirably. The abrupt character of the slopes momentarily increased, but these remarkable stone steps, a little less difficult than those of the Egyptian pyramids, were one simple natural means by which we were enabled to proceed. About 7 in the evening of that day, after having clambered up 2,000 of these rough steps, we found ourselves overlooking a kind of spur or projection of the mountain, a sort of buttress upon which the cone-like crater, properly so called, leaned for support. The ocean lay beneath us at a depth of more than 3,200 feet, a grand and mighty spectacle. We had reached the region of eternal snows. The cold was keen, searching, and intense. The wind blew with extraordinary violence. I was utterly exhausted. My worthy uncle, the professor, saw clearly that my legs refused further service, and that, in fact, I was utterly exhausted. Despite his hot and feverish impatience, he decided, with a sigh, upon a halt. He called the eiderduck hunter to his side. That worthy, however, shook his head. "Often fur," was his sole spoken reply. "It appears," says my uncle, with a woe-begone look, "that we must go higher." He then turned to Hans and asked him to give some reason for his decisive response. "Mistor," replied the guide. "Ja, Mistor?" "Yes, the Mistor," cried one of the Icelandic guides in a terrified tone. It was the first time he had spoken. "What does this mysterious word signify?" I anxiously inquired. "Look," said my uncle. I looked down upon the plain below, and I saw a prodigious volume of pulverized pumice stone, of sand, of dust, rising to the heavens in the form of a mighty waterspout. It resembled the fearful phenomenon of a similar character known to the travelers in the desert of the Great Sahara. What, like an ifrit? The wind was driving it directly toward that side of Sneffels on which we were perched. This opaque veil standing up between us and the sun projected a deep shadow on the flanks of the mountain. If this sand spout broke over us, we must all be infallibly destroyed, crushed in its fearful embraces. This extraordinary phenomenon, very common when the wind shakes the glaciers and sweeps over the arid plains, is in the Icelandic tongue called mistor. Hastigjit. Hastigjit. That's like, hurry up, cried our guard. Now I certainly knew nothing of Danish, but I thoroughly understood that his gestures were meant to quicken us. The guide turned rapidly in a direction which would take us to the back of the crater, all the while ascending slightly. We followed rapidly, despite our excessive fatigue. A quarter of an hour later, Hans paused to enable us to look back. The mighty whirlwind of sand was spreading up the slope of the mountain to the very spot we had purposed to halt. Huge stones were caught up, cast into the air, and thrown about as during an eruption. We were happily a little out of the direction of the wind, and therefore out of reach of danger. But for the precaution and knowledge of our guide, our dislocated bodies, our crushed and broken limbs would have been cast to the wind like dust from some unknown meteor. Hans, however, did not think it prudent to pass the night on the bare side of the cone. We therefore continued our journey in a zigzag direction. The 1,500 feet which remained to be accomplished took us at least 5 hours. The turnings and windings, the no thoroughfares, the marches and marches turned that insignificant distance into at least 3 leagues. I never felt such misery, fatigue, and exhaustion in my life. I was ready to faint from hunger. All right, I think we're gonna have to call it quits there. We almost got through this chapter. Well, we're like, oh, so close. But that's okay. There's always tomorrow. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming along, and we'll catch you next time. Samsy. And we'll leave you with just a couple of seconds of the big old Rosie.